Hey, what's up guys? Chad here with the Reptile Rangers. Now we're at the Kernersville Reptile Zoo and Medical Center again today, and we're going to talk about those wintertime blues, all right? So before we get into that, right there in that corner, would be my left-hand side, but it would be your right-hand side. On your screen is the subscriber button. If you're on your cell phone, widen that up to the full screen, and you will see that RR subscriber watermark right down in the bottom right-hand corner. All right, now that you have done that, let's get right into this. So what happens when we hit the fall time? Here in the Mid-South, we have fluctuations of temperature, like some people change their clothes, like some people change their minds, like some people change their shoes. We make the joke all the time here in North Carolina, we can have all 4 seasons in one day. The interesting thing is it wreaks absolute havoc on our reptile pets. So how do we kind of prepare for that? How do we plan for that? How do we deal with those things? Because we take a ton of phone calls, usually right around this time up until about December, and then usually right in the springtime when the temperatures start doing this number again, like a roller coaster ride at an amusement park. And what do we do? How do we deal with it? All right, so that's what we're going to talk about right now. So here's what we do. Here's what we want to do. Making sure that especially our temperatures are right, because as a matter of fact, I've been taking a lot of phone calls just in and of these past 2 weeks alone, bearded dragons and ball pythons already starting. We obviously know anybody that has a ball python or has extended amount of reptiles knows that ball pythons are incredibly finicky. We call them the dumber of the snakes, but they're very picky, they're very stressy. The least little thing will cause them to stop eating. They're beautiful animals and they can make great first-time pets, absolutely. But they're one of those that's just completely mood swings away, right? Just with very little biting, okay? The thing becomes, what we need to do in the wintertime for wintertime blues and dealing with your cold-blooded animal in the wintertime is you want to make sure that the temperatures are maintaining. What generally happens when we see people and people call us is that they start telling us, look, man, I haven't done anything different. Everything's the same. The temperature's the same, or the lights are the same. The temperature's obviously not the same. They haven't changed the habitat. They haven't moved the habitat. They haven't done anything like that, right? Well, here's the thing. Interestingly enough, even though you may not have changed anything, the environment has changed. The weather has changed. These animals can feel the barometric pressure raising and lowering. They can feel the cold air coming in and out of the windows and doors and things like that as they open and close. So your animals know what's going on a lot of the times more than you do, considering we don't really feel that barometric pressure dropping. They can feel that. We can feel that if we pay attention, but their bodies absolutely feel that because, again, they're ectothermic. They're cold-blooded animals. Their bodies adjust with the surroundings around them and the changes of environment around them as far as temperature goes. So, going back into thermometers and different things inside the habitat, right? If you've watched any amount of our videos before, you know that you should not have the little round dials that have the little dial in the middle like a clock, like this right here. If you have that inside of your pen, throw that piece of crap in the garbage can because it's never right. A lot of the times as much as 10 degrees plus off, okay? You need something more along the lines of these right here. If you want to go cheap, then at least it's digital. But this would be much better. Doesn't tell the humidity, but that's fine. And as a desert pen, you don't need the humidity. I mean, if the only thing you have in a desert pen is a water dish, you're not going to have too much humidity when your temperature is where it's supposed to be for a desert species. If it's hot, that little bit of water is not going to create that much humidity. There's already about 15 to 20% humidity inside of a home to begin with because of sinks and toilets and tubs and water usage and so on and so forth. So with that being said, having the right thermometer is key, okay? So making sure the basking spot is where it's supposed to be, the warm end is the temperature it's supposed to be, and the cold end is cooler, or the temperature that it needs to be, rough ranged. Because even if you don't change anything, a lot of the times even houses, and some that are not quite as eco-friendly, they're more eco-sensitive, they will change, the house changes with the temperatures outside as well quite significantly. You have to maintain and make sure to bear in mind to watch your habitat. That temp gun laser pointed temp gun will tell you instantly right what your temperatures are, and you can find out if it goes from, for example, a bearded dragon here. If that basking spot was at 105 degrees during the summertime or 107, beautiful, perfect. Even 110, that's awesome. But now all of a sudden it's down to like 95. Well, it still seems hot. That's not quite warm enough for a basking spot. The warm end should be about that, but the basking spot still needs to be up there, which also means if this is 95, then your cool end is probably going to be even cooler, which also will make sense as to why now they're going into a brumation stage. Maybe they're eating less, they're looking a little darker, they're trying to hide and sleep more, and that's all due to the temperature cooling down. Changes of environment, okay? Now, the biggest key issues that we have when it comes to wintertime blues is hands down temperature. And so in taking biggest amount of phone calls, it will be in, oh, my dragon's not eating, my snake is not eating. What is your temperature? Don't just go off the fact of you didn't change anything from summertime, because if you go off of that fact, you're probably already on a leg down. Because things do need to change. You may have to go higher wattage bulbs. You may have to go higher wattage heat emitters. You may have to raise that temperature some because if you're finding them slowing down and going into that brumative state or trying to go into that brumative state, then that means some way, somehow they're feeling that temperature change much more significantly than they should be, okay? Now also, another dangerous side to this is if you start feeding them or you're continuing to feed them on a regular basis and they're actually eating on the regular basis and then start slowing down and they're not having as regular of bowel movements, that right there is equal amount of problems in the fact of impaction, potential prolapsing, death by gut rot, okay, where food just sits on their system and rots instead of it actually processing. It just sits there rotting away because they're not warm enough to process it and digest it like they're supposed to. So many different issues can come from situations like just slight temperature changes inside of their environment. We always have to be mindful of the ecosystem, watching what they're doing. But we all need to be pre-planning and keeping a regular check. Some people just like, oh yeah, man, everything's good. They've been doing fine. Months and months and months, they've been doing great. And then all of a sudden they start not doing great and they're like, whoa, what's going on? They weren't keeping a regular check on seeing and making sure that the environment was staying the way that it was supposed to. Okay, the light come on, the bedding was there, he was eating, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the environment was in the perfect condition, temperature-wise or otherwise. So we always need to be maintaining and monitoring what's going on inside of our habitats. With that being said, we want to make sure that you guys understand that, especially, from the north, it typically changes pretty quickly. The temperature goes, they do have some fluctuation in temperatures, but it generally gets cold much faster and stays that way. So it gives people up north a chance to just almost go ahead and start instantly working on that habitat. In the like I said, in the middle south, it is so fluctuating for so long period of time that it really does wreak havoc on the reptiles. In the south, in the deep south, it's just kind of a steady, gradual cool down. Yeah, they'll have those fluctuations from time to time. Everywhere will. Everywhere will have fluctuation, but it doesn't generally seem to happen in the far north and the far south. Extended periods of fluctuation that just drive these animals nuts like it does in the middle southern part of the country. Okay? Now, this is Chad. We are the Reptile Rangers here at the Kernersville Reptile Zoo and Medical Center. We appreciate you following along week after week after week. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, the like button. Make sure to hit the bell for notification. Also, feel free to leave a comment. Write us in and let us know of other things you want us to film about. People are doing it all the time. We're trying to get to them as we can. We appreciate you following along week after week after week. We'll either see you here at the zoo or we'll see you on the next episode. Later.